Nearly a year has passed since Simchat Torah 5784, October 7th, 2023. Nearly a full year since our day of joy turned into a day of sorrow. Since that cruel day, the State of Israel has been engaged in a complex and difficult war on multiple fronts, including the dramatic events of the past few days. We have lost so many dear and beloved people, friends, colleagues, family members, and many others who were murdered in their homes in the communities of the Gaza envelope, as well as those killed or wounded during the Nova Festival, those who were killed or wounded in military service, and victims of war and terrorism. Tens of thousands have been displaced from their homes in the north and the south, longing for a home, aching from the pain of uprooting. Many have been wounded both mentally and physically and are undergoing a long and courageous process of rehabilitation. Above all, more than 100 hostages remain in captivity in Gaza, leaving us with deep uncertainty and a shared sense of urgency. Today, we gather as organizations representing reform and progressive Judaism worldwide to mark 1 year since the tragic events of October 7th. These events and their aftermath are extraordinary by any human standard. The shock and upheaval that followed in Israeli civil society and among Jews around the world have been among the hardest we have known. In this space, we come together to honor our mourning, pain, longing, loss, love, and hope, while also setting our intentions for the year ahead. The content and text shared throughout the event will be provided to you afterwards for your use and inspiration during the upcoming month of holidays and remembrance. As our souls weep with sorrow and grief, let us pause for a moment of silence and reflection. Following this moment, we will hear a testimony from Amit Levi, the brother of Naama Levi, who has been held hostage since October 7th.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amit. I'm 22 years old from Israel, and I'm here to speak about my little sister, Naama. Naama is now 20 years old, and on October 7th, she was kidnapped brutally by Hamas terrorists. And now, for almost a year, she's being held as a hostage, which is a nightmare for all of us, obviously, as her family, but especially to her, being held in unimaginable conditions. So, first, I would like to tell you a bit about Nama. There's less than 2 years between us, so we really grew up together, and I always was able to give her some tips because I always faced challenges a bit before she did. And this is really the first time that I couldn't get her ready, and I couldn't. Obviously, none of us knew what was going to happen, and I just miss her as a little sister, as not just the normal stuff, but the brother and sister moments of being together in the living room and having small talk and having a laugh and annoying our little siblings. our little brother or our parents, and just the regular moments is what I miss the most. And besides being my little sister, Naama was an outstanding athlete. In middle school, she used to do triathlon, and she would wake my parents up on Saturday mornings at 5 a.m. to take her to competitions. She was so competitive and so strong, and this is what I also take from her mentality during that period of time, which I'm sure can help her and us now when she's facing really inhuman suffering. And now I think she knows that her mission is to survive, and I'm hopeful, and I believe that she is going to achieve that mission because she's that strong. And yeah, but obviously it's not all up to her, and we've seen really heartbreaking moments of heroes surviving the captivity for so long in the Gaza Strip, and then being shot, and after surviving so much, they were just sentenced to death. So I'm obviously, me and my family were worried sick, and we all know how strong Naama is, and that really helps us get through the day, and we know that we can't give up, and we need to keep fighting for her because she keeps on fighting and keeps on surviving. But we know it's not all in her hands, and she is being held by terrorists who killed babies and tortured and raped and kidnapped people on October 7th and before and since. So we are very worried, and that's why we're obviously pushing to bring her back as soon as possible, because her being in these conditions for almost a year, I mean, we really need her back home so she can become Naama again, become my little sister again, become my parents' daughter again, and heal herself after what she went through. And I always say that I hope after all she's going through, she's still gonna believe in peace when she'll be back home. And I really, really believe she'll be back home, and we need all of us, all the hostage families. There are 101 innocent hostages being held there in the Gaza Strip, and we all need your help. Everyone who has any kind of influence, anyone who knows that someone with influence who can push for a deal. The word deal is always so hard to use. I think there should be some better words when speaking about human lives, but we really need this deal to go through to end the suffering of my little sister and the other hostages and all the innocent people who are having the worst time of their lives. And really, even if it seems like you don't have anything to do, just speak about it anywhere you can, with friends, with family, in the workplace, I don't know, in the social media, of course. I mean, I think what I understand after almost a year of this, of all of this going on in my life, I understand that the leaders of the world are making decisions based on where the wind is taking them and where they feel the public is. And I think we should all show them that the wind goes towards bringing back the hostages is the most important thing. And I'm very hopeful that we can end this nightmare soon. And now Rosh Hashanah is getting close, and my wish for the new year, obviously, is to get my little sister back and all the hostages back to their families. I think this is the most basically humanitarian thing that can happen, and I pray for that every day.
Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei dereveinu imu
Over the past year, as many of you know, the IMPJ has been holding weekly Havdalah ceremonies at the Hosted Square in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem. Our intention was to create a circle of shared pain and support, ensuring that the families of the hostages would not face each week alone. We never imagined we would still be holding these ceremonies nearly a year later. I would like to share a short film that tells the story of these Havdalot, one of the many threads of the story of the Israel movement for reform and progressive Judaism experience in action during this past year.
It was October 14th, and I saw on Y8 Avichai Brodetsky on a chair sitting in front of Kaplan, and he was alone. And I called Chen, my good friend, Rabbi Chen Sfoni. We came to be with him, and I told to myself, well, where is Am Yisrael? If they're not here, we have to be here.
The Havdalah ceremonies emerged spontaneously. They began as an immediate and heartfelt response to the need for community and support. In Hebrew we say, Makom le'aniach alav et hanefesh, a place to rest and soothe one's spirit.
From moment to moment, I realized that people don't know what to do here. So I decided that we will start to do a circle of people singing, and just to create an energy of people that we will pray with them and talk to them about the situation and about the kidnapped people. After the first of the La, we just realized that this is a brit we have with the Chatufim and the Chatufot, with the kidnapped, because if their families cannot sleep, we have to be here. But after that, street of Tel Aviv was still under attack. There were rockets falling, so not many people came. We started with 20 people, and from moment to moment, another one just joined us. And in the end of this evening, we were singing and praying and crying with 150 people. We felt that the people just needed a place to put their sorrow and to be together.
Most participants are Israelis who don't affiliate Reform, but they know where to find us. It became a gathering place of Israeli society.
I am a member of Kihilat Birkat Shalom on Kibbutz Gezer. My brother and his wife Aviva were taken from Kibbutz Kfar Aza on October 7th.
ולדעת כמה שאנחנו כן לבד, אנחנו לא לבד. הנוכחות שלכם, התמיכה שלכם, כל כך, כל כך, כל כך חשוב.
There's a strong bond with global Jewish communities. Solidarity missions and individuals have literally planned their visits around the timing of Havdalot here.
If this past awful year has taught us anything, it's reminded us how much we need each other, how much Israel needs American Jewry, and how much American Jewry needs Israel. Earlier in the year, I brought a number of my congregants to Israel. We marveled at the resilience, how they reached out to help neighbors in need, how in so many ways they stepped in to perform services the government simply could not provide.
As the high holidays approach, I hope that we will be able to differentiate, leavdil, like in Havdalah, and to transition from the challenging year we've had to a new period of stability and renewal with a safe return of the hostages.
We've been here a year, and if it will take us another year, Rabbi Chen and Rabbi Ofek and I will keep coming here a week after here until the last hostages will come home.
The World Union for Progressive Judaism, in solidarity with the State of Israel, after the pogrom of October the 7th, we call all of our communities to stand by Israel, to speak out, and to address the new anti-Semitism with the face of anti-Zionism. Our commitment to support our brothers and sisters in Israel to run an emergency campaign, to bring solidarity missions to Israel, and to go out to the streets in demonstrations and rallies with the Israeli flag and the values of Megillat Atzmaut, to support and to address to all the world that we are here, that Am Israel Chai, and we really support Israel everywhere, every time. Am Israel Chai, Besorot Tovot. Shalom al Israel.
ללא מילים, ללא תחושות, אין מנוס ממחשבות. יש בוקר לא מוסבר, איך שרים כשהלב נשבר. אני פה מול החדשות, לא מעכל את הדמעות. אם אנחנו עם נבחר, איך נחרד גורל אכזר, ואין תשובות. ערפל כבד נחת עכשיו, למי פונים? הנשמה פצועה בקרב, שמע ישראל אומרים יחדיו, עוד לא אבדה תקוותנו להיות חופשי בארצנו. שמע ישראל, כולנו עם אחד, עוד לא אבדה תקוותנו להיות חופשי בארצנו. שמע ישראל, כולנו עם אחד, עם אחד, עם אחד, עם אחד, כולנו עם אחד, עם אחד, עם אחד, עם אחד, כולנו עם אחד.
Individuals and congregations who have stood by us, both near and far, over the past year. It is my pleasure to introduce two dear colleagues from Hebrew Union College in Jerusalem, Rabbi Michael Marmer, Associate Professor of Jewish Theology, and Rabbi Professor Dalia Martz, who will lead us in a Limud study session titled An Open Wound, October 7th, 1 year later.
In the case of personal grief, none of us mourns in exactly the same way, and each of us heals at a different pace. But our tradition has created a framework within time, according to which the first days, the Shiv'ah, give way to the first month and then to the first year. And there is the hope, typically, that a year after the initial loss and the complicated stages of grief, a degree of healing has taken place by the time we mark the first anniversary. Indeed, there's a teaching in the name of Rabbi Meir, one of the great sages of the 2nd century, which suggests that if you meet someone who has had a loss, but you've met them after the first year is over, you should not just launch in to an attempt to comfort them as if they were in the first throes of their grief. Because, as he says, speaking to a mourner for the first time about their grief after the first 12 months can be compared to a surgeon meeting a person who'd been wounded but whose wound has healed up. The surgeon says to the recovered patient, "Pay me my fee and I will tear open your wound so that I can heal it." Similarly, to remind a person of their grief after a year has passed is to rip open their wound. So it is in the domain of personal grief. But in the case of national trauma, we find ourselves a year, almost a year after the traumatic events of October 7th, and the wound that we nurse, some of us in the most direct and extreme way, but all of us to some degree or another, that wound is still open. That wound is not healing. The expression, the idea of a wound that does not heal is given extraordinary articulation by the prophet Yeshayahu, Isaiah, who says, "Mikaf regel va'ad rosh ein bom metom, petza v'chabura u'makatria." From the foot to the head, no spot is sound, all wounds and bruises and festering sores, not pressed out, not bound up, not softened with oil. Look at that word, metom. There is no space on the body which is so riddled with injury for metom. That word is explicated by some of our classic medieval commentators. Rashi says of the word metom, leshon tmimut. It comes from the word expressing perfection, integrity, something that is whole and without pain. And that is what disappears when one's body is riddled with open wounds. Ibn Ezra, another of the great medieval commentators, suggests that matom should be understood as makom sheyesh bo tom, a place containing, epitomizing soundness, integrity. And I want to suggest that even as we have to face our unresolved and open wound, there still are areas, there are places we can look to for expressions of metom, for the possibility of wholeness, of integrity. And let me share just a couple with you. This is Major Benji Trakaniski, whose mother, Liz Bennett, was a director of youth activities when I, many years ago, was a youth in the Northwestern Reform Synagogue in London. Benji was one of those soldiers who immediately answered the call to rush to the most acute areas of need, coming down from the center of the country, and having saved, by all accounts, tens of lives, fell in defense of Kibbutz Be'eri. Everything one knows about Benji Trakaniski and so many others like him is indeed an expression of metom, of pureness and wholeness. Here's another example. This famous, sadly now iconic image of Hirsch Goldberg Polin. We learned in the course of these several so long months of his captivity, and then through the tragedy of his eventual death, not only about his purity, but also of his extraordinary family. Here, for example, words uttered at his graveside by his remarkable mother, Rachel Goldberg Polin. "Now, my Hirsch," she says, "I ask for your help. As we transform our hope into grief in this new unknown brand of pain, I beg of you, Hirsch, please do what you can do to have your life shine down. Help shower us with healing and resilience. Help us to rise again." Yet another expression of metom, of pureness and wholeness, we heard of just a few minutes ago when Amit Levy spoke so lovingly of his sister Naama. Here are words that Naama Levy wrote as part of her pre-army program, a document that has come to light since she has fallen into captivity. She wrote about what she had learned in the course of her time in this pre-army program. I learned not to give up. I learned that things take time. I learned to get up and try again, even where there seems to be no chance. I learned that it's not the end of the world, even when it seems like it is. I learned not to be afraid to fear, not to be afraid to try, not to be afraid to show who I am. I learned to give my 100% even when I am exhausted. I learned to stay optimistic. I learned that each day is a new opportunity. I learned that I still have so much to learn. These are words of matom, of pureness and wholeness, that speak to us, speak to me at least, even as we confront our open and gaping wound. The response of so many in Israeli society in the immediate aftermath of the traumatic events of October 7th and beyond, the civilian response at a time, I do not wish to be political, when our government response was so sorely lacking in so many ways. As government struggled to find its voice, society filled a void. People from across the social spectrum, across the geographical spectrum, people stepping in quite remarkable ways. This too is an expression of matom, of purity and wholeness at a time of a bleeding wound. Let me show you the image of a couple, bringing us back now to Kibbutz Be'eri, Tari and Lilach Kipnis, each of them remarkable individuals. We'll come back to some of the creativity of Tari, Tari and Lilach and Tari's carer were murdered on Kibbutz Be'eri in the course of October 7th. But let me share, as I come to the end of my comments and we transition to my colleague, Dalia Marks, a poem written by an Israeli poet who uses an image which Tari, unbeknownst, also made use of. This is the poem by Gali Ravitz, and she writes, Zut kufa shekashe ledaber ba al ofek. This is a period in which it is hard to speak of horizon. It seems that there's not anything on the horizon. And yet when I close my eyes at night before sleep, I remember my dreams and the places I wanted to be in, my children, my loves, and I become weightless like a seagull, soaring very high, drawing me a line and flying in its direction. After his death, Tari's family found his works of art and have recently mounted an exhibition at Beit Daniel, our flagship center in Tel Aviv. And this picture of a seagull flying above the masts of ships is one that speaks to me, perhaps speaks to us, as an expression of possibility, even as we must face our still bleeding wound.
Michael, toda rabba. Thank you very much. It's good to be together, friends. I reflect on the verse that you shared from Isaiah. You concentrated on the word metom. I'm thinking about another word in this verse, which is petza. Petza is translated as wound or bruise. Obviously, a very violent depiction or image. But petza, if we use it as a verb, also means to grow, to thrive, to even to be born, right? If we are talking about how the morning enters, we say, in English, actually, it's not very different. In English, we say morning has broken, right? And in Hebrew, we say haboker hiftzia. The morning caused pain in the sky, in the heavens, in order to bring light. So sometimes, and this is my hope, that this petza that we are suffering now, that we're experiencing, and it's completely an open wound, will also bring to new birth. It seems that in these difficult days, and Michael and I spoke a lot about it, it's very hard to find words. How can we talk about something that is completely out of words? How can we talk at all? We cannot really talk, and therefore we must talk. So Rabbi Marmor, Michael, spoke about metom, and the image that comes to my mind is the image of a bore. Bore means a pit. Bore also means a cistern, but in our case, it's a pit. It's a hole in the ground, and it is a very, how can I say, something that is going with us these days, because it feels, on one hand, we are in a way in a bore as a society, this Jewish society. And I brought you here the picture, the famous picture by Peter Bruegel, the elder, people falling, the blind people falling into a pit. And sometimes that's how many of us feel. But Bo is also where 101 of our brothers and sisters are still held, right? The Torah doesn't know the word tunnel. It's called Bo. And maybe the most famous bore that we have in our culture is the bore where Joseph was held after his brothers stripped him from his ketonet pasim, from his tunic, and they took him and cast him into a pit. And the pit was empty. There was no water in it. And that's the strongest depiction of someone who's being deserted, or someone who's being wronged, of a very, very aggressive, violent attitude to a person. But when I think about Bo, yes, I think about another word that comes from a similar root in Hebrew, and it probably has similar etymology. We have Bo, which is pit, but we also have be'er, which is a well. Be'er is a very different thing than pit. Be'er is a well of water. It brings water from the very deep places on earth, and it is a be'er of life. It brings us life. It brings us light. It satiates us, unlike the empty bowl that we see in the story of Joseph. So it's either be'er or bor. Both of these expressions are so very present in our experience these days. And the be'er reminds me of the first be'er that we have in our history, the be'er that Hagar discovered after the angel of God speaks to her, and she says, "Do not be afraid. God heard the voice of your child." This is when she runs away with her son, Ishmael. And this is exactly the text that we're going to be reading on Rosh Hashanah in a few days, the first day of Rosh Hashanah, Genesis 21. And she's crying because she doesn't know what's going to become of her child. She's very lonely. She's very disempowered. She has no agency at all. She's a foreign woman. She's a slave woman. And then it says, then God opened her eyes and she saw a well of water. Yeah. So the well was always there. God did not make made a hocus pocus and finally brought her well. The well was there, but it's about our ability to see something that is there, but maybe not so visible. It's about our faith to see that even in a very dry place, in the wilderness, in the desert, there can be living water. And it takes me to another be'er. It takes me to Kibbutz Be'eri, the sweet, sweet kibbutz that was established in 1948 with incredible, beautiful people that suffered so much in October 7th. We know that 100 of its members were murdered. We know that the dozens of soldiers and policemen were killed also while trying to defend the kibbutz. And we know that more than 30 kibbutz members were kidnapped by Hamas. Some of them were put to death. And I'm thinking about Be'eri, the kibbutz that brings us this concept of Be'er Mayim Chaim, of this hope to find life even in very, very dry places, even in the desert. And I'm thinking about the name of Be'eri. The name of Be'eri is after Berl Katzenelson. Berl Katzenelson was a major thinker, author, journalist, one of the heads of the Zionist labor movement, and his Hebrew name was Be'eri. And when this kibbutz wanted to find a name, they decided to call it after Be'er Katzenel, so they decided to call it Be'eri. And Be'eri has become a symbol in many ways, like so many other symbols. And we've already heard about a few people who served and died in Kibbutz Be'eri during the massacre of October 7th. And I want to bring you a short, two passages, two stanzas from a lamentation written by Yagel Harush. You can find it online with beautiful music, which we could not bring to you because of royalty issues. And he is taking the image of Be'er, of a well, which is a very prominent image, metaphor in Jewish thought, in Jewish mysticism. And he asks, Echa be'eri hafcha lekivri, oh, how my well, my be'eri, become my grave, and my day of light become my darkness, and every fruit destroyed, and my song overthrown. My eyes fill with water from the depth of my despair. And it goes stanza after stanza and describing in a very graphic way, in a very painful way, what happened in Be'eri. But he ends with these words. Ve'echa et ma borer uma, oh, how long I wonder, Creator on high, how long will the people be in terror? How long will the earth be humiliated? Now arise to light my lamp, and with your spring of mercy, heal my despair, and my eyes brimming with water to fill my be'er. ובאין רחמך תרפא שברי, ועיני הדומעת תשקה בארי. So that's about Be'er, but there's another Be'er that Michael and I were thinking about today when we thought about the image of a Be'er, and that's the Be'er of the Little Prince, also written in a context of a very devastating war by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. And I wanted to ask Michael to read it, please.
He looked at me steadily and replied to my thought. I am thirsty too, let us look for a well. I made a gesture of weariness. It is absurd to look for a well at random in the immensity of the desert, but nevertheless we started walking. What makes the desert beautiful, said the little prince, is that somewhere it hides a well. I found the well at daybreak. Do you hear, said the little prince, we have wakened the well and it is singing. I did not want him to tire himself with the rope. Leave it to me, I said, it is too heavy for you. I hoisted the bucket slowly to the edge of the well and set it there, happy, tired as I was over my achievement. The song of the pulley was still in my ears, and I could see the sunlight shimmer in the still trembling water. I'm thirsty for this water, said the little prince. Give me some of it to drink.
Thank you very much, Michael. So I think this is the idea here, that the little prince calls us, challenges us to be ready, to be willing to envision, to think, to imagine the water under a very, very dry place. I'm going to move to just to say one more thing about be'er. If we take be'er as a verb, leva'er means to ascribe meaning, to explain, to provide words. And I think this is one of the things that we are called to do these days. We cannot remain in silence. We cannot remain speechless. We need to speak. We need to talk. We need to address those who are in pain. We need to approach those who are in pain. We need to speak with our communities. We should not stay at home. We have to make sure that nobody remains at home alone. We need to live air. We need to explain our reality to ourselves in order to make it better.
Thank you so much for reminding me that Petza doesn't only mean wound, but carries within it the possibility of a breaking new reality, of a new dawn. And thank you also for making the distinction between the bor, the pit into which we are thrown, and the be'er from which something can be drawn. Even the open wound, the bleeding gash, is not devoid of matom, of the promise of wholeness. Even when all is broken, dawn can break. even deep in the pit, we may yet draw some hope from the well.
Thank you very much, Michael. And I think in the name of both of us, I would like to wish you all, may it be a year of living water, of haftza'at, breaking in of beautiful ideas of comfort and consolation. תכלה שנה וקללותיה, תחל שנה וברכותיה. May this year and its curses end, and may the new year with its blessings begin. Shana Tova.
Thank you, Rabbis Marmer and Marks. I encourage all who have joined us this evening to share these learnings around your holiday tables and with your communities and congregations in the upcoming weeks. I would like to invite Maoz Inon to share a final testimony for this evening. Maoz is an Israeli peace entrepreneur who has found several peace-focused tourism initiatives in the country. After losing both his parents in the Hamas attack on October 7, 2023, he has become a leading voice for Israeli-Palestinian peace.
Hi everyone, and Shana Tova. My name is Maoz Inon. I'm an Israeli, lived all my life in Israel. I was born in Kibbutz Niram, about 1.5 kilometers from the border with Gaza. The kibbutz where my father was born, and a kibbutz that was established by my grandparents about 90 years ago. When I was 14, my parents and my family, my 3 sisters and young brother, we decided to move out from the kibbutz, and we got even closer to the border with Gaza. We moved to Netiv Asara, and my parents built our house 200 meters from the border. And that's where when I called my father on October the 7th morning in 7:45, he was speaking with me from the safe room, sharing with me the noise of the shooting, of the bombs, of the sirens, from the Hamas attack. I just told him that I love him and I love mom, that I could hear in the background, and to be safe, and that we'll talk soon. So 5 minutes after, and 7:50, I tried to call them again, but this time there was no answer. For the entire day, we tried to reach them, and only in 5 in the afternoon, we were able to reach the security officer of Netiv Asara, who told us that my parents' house is burned to ashes and that there are 2 bodies inside. When I heard that tragic and horrible news, I was just broken into so many pieces, and I was drowning, literally drowning in an ocean of sorrow, of pain, of agony. 2 days after, my young brother asked the family to send a universal message that we are seeking no revenge, that we don't want to revenge the death of our parents. Of course, we accepted it. And on that same night, I had a dream. And in my dream, I could see the entire humanity crying, and our bodies were wounded from the war and burned from the war. And the ground was soaked with blood. And as we cried, our tears washed our bodies and healed it. And then our tears washed the ground, washed the blood from the ground, and pured and cleaned the ground. And then I could see the path to peace. And I've decided that this is the path I'm going to choose in order to cure myself, to heal myself, and to suggest this cure and healing to everyone who is listening to me. And there are only 3 words that I really want to share with you today. Those 3 words are that peace is possible. Yes, peace is possible. And in order to harvest peace in the near future, we must seed. We must sow. We must sow the seeds of hope, the seeds of forgiveness, and the seeds of the future. And now in October is the month that for the last 60 years, my father would sow wheat in the fields of the Negev. It doesn't matter how devastating the year before was, if it's because of floods or droughts, insects, he would always say that next year will be better, and it's up to him to make it better. And the future is where Israelis and Palestinians meet. Even though our stories is as far as ever from each other at the moment, but we meet in the future that is based on equality and dignity, shared acknowledgement and recognition, reconciliation and healing, security and safety. In order to build this future, we must forgive for the past, we must forgive for the present, but we cannot and should not forgive for the future. And I want to offer you, to ask you, not to ask for forgiveness, but forgive. Forgiving is the strongest tool there is. So in order to be free, in order to build the future, I've decided to forgive. Forgive those who killed my parents. I'm focusing only in the future. And this future can come really soon. But we need to work hard. We need to dream about peace. We need to amplify the voices of peace. We need to build a coalition, very strong coalition of Palestinians and Israelis with international support that will work together to make peace into a reality. And this is my call to action for you. Dream about peace. Amplify those voices in your communities, in your synagogues, in your family, where you work. We must convince everyone and change the discourse that peace is possible, and we are the one. We are this chain in the link that will make what those who came before us didn't make. So now it's up to us to make the future a better future, to make peace. So I wish you as a great new Jewish year, and that this year will bring peace, will bring hope, and will bring reconciliation. Shalom and Shana Tova lekulam.
Nefesh